And we're live on YouTube. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Sunday. We've got an exciting panel lined up to debrief ourselves on what's been another eventful weekend in the Premier League. And we're going to chat, and producer Charlie's going to make it a podcast. Should we start? Let's. There'll be an intro. I'll come back and do that. And then I'll say, it's been Sunday the 25th of August, a.k.a. second half of Premier League Match Day 2. What with the first half of it, it's been a busy weekend. That's confusing. I'm going to start again. It's been Sunday the 25th of August. Listener, thank you so much for joining us on what has been the concluding day of Premier League Match Day 2. Another busy weekend it's added up to. Here to make sense of it all in time-honoured, totally fashion, we got Tim Spears.
Hi, James.
All right, Tim, last time we spoke to you, you were standing between a karaoke bar and a strip club in Benidorm.
Yeah.
Is that geographically?
Stayed there a while, yeah.
Did you? That was after England-Spain, I think, no?
Yeah, of course. That was a crazy night.
Crazy.
Which I'll never quite the same person after that night, Jim.
Really?
Yeah, a lot happened that night.
Tonight might be quite crazy as well. Got a lot to get through. We've got Matt Davies-Adams in.
Hi, James.
Madam. Which, you're an anagram of madam and some other stuff.
Yeah, fine.
That's not what I wanted.
Good save.
But, you've just been watching Wolves-Chelsea earlier on today, and Tim has too.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed it more than Tim did.
It's a big talking point, that, after the preamble with the Chelsea winger Noni Madueke tweeting or putting on his Instagram, everything about this place is shit. Tim, is that a fair assessment of Wolverhampton?
Well, he's clearly not been to the art gallery or the West Park. So we've got some good. No, it's not great. But who's he to judge that, and what's he basing that on? Has he been at Wolverhampton last night, or has he just arrived at the Novotel and not happy with the service?
What would be the Chelsea transfer protocol?
One would imagine they arrived via Ellison's coaches the night before the game and, stayed in a nondescript hotel far from the city centre with instructions not to go out. So it is a curious one, but it was really, really funny, wasn't it? Let's be perfectly frank, and even funnier that he managed to score a hat-trick.
He really missed a trick with his celebration, though. Like, surely you've got to go around holding your nose or just something,
I enjoyed Chelsea's Twitter response after they said he's starting to like this place after he scored a hat-trick away at Wolves. We'll get onto that. For his part, Noni did put out a heartfelt apology. I will just want to apologise to everyone. I might have offended it. It's just a human mistake. Wasn't meant to be out on my socials like that. I'm sure Wolverhampton is a nice town. I'm sorry. We've all made snap judgments before, haven't we? I mean, that's been the basis of a lot of this podcast. Colin Miller is also with us. Hi, Colin. What have you been doing today?
Hi, James. I haven't been at any Benidorm strip clubs, and I haven't been in Wolverhampton either. So I'm not quite sure how accurate Noni Madueke's description of the centre was. I'm sure it's a lovely place, Tim. But yes, I was actually at a National League South game yesterday. I was at St Albans against Chesham, and Chesham won 2-1. It's nice. It's always good to be in a non-league game. Get a bit of a feel of that, but also you have the contrast of the Premier League getting back. And I think this weekend we probably learned a lot more than the first weekend. I think the opening weekend of games was very much quite a lot of unbalanced fixtures, whereas this weekend you had Villa Arsenal, you had Brighton United, you had a couple more, maybe not quite heavyweight matches, but I think we learned a lot more about some of the teams.
Good. All right. I'm dying to find out what the results on match day 2 were. Saturday lunchtime, Brighton 2-1 winners over Man United. Another late goal in that game for Brighton. Saturday afternoon, then 3 o'clock, Spurs whipped Everton 4-0. Everton now no goals scored and 7 conceded so far. This is their worst ever start to a season. Also, there were important looking away wins for West Ham 2-0 at Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest 1-0 at St Mary's. Meanwhile, Fulham beat Leicester 2-1. Smith Rowe with his first for the Cottagers, and Ipswich went a goal up at Man City, and that ended about as well for them as you would imagine. City 4-1 winners eventually with a Erling Haaland hat-trick. At tea time on Saturday, Arsenal matched City's pace with a 2-0 victory at Aston Villa, which was impressive but not as much as what Chelsea got up to early Saturday away at Wolves.
Early Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Early Sunday away at Wolves. 6-2. 6-2 at Molineux. Wow. Get into that very shortly. The other Sunday games were Bournemouth Newcastle, which finished 1-1 amid some controversy. And in the late Sunday slot, Liverpool beat Brentford 2-0. All right. Off to Molineux. Some comms here, Charlie?
Maybe either the Madueke hat-trick goal or the Felix sixth goal.
Probably Madueke, no? Yeah. What did they chant at Madueke in?
The Chelsea fans chanted, "Noni's right, Wolves is shite."
You shouldn't laugh.
Really
What about the Wolves? They just called him wanker, basically.
They booed him a lot. I didn't hear a specific chant.
Okay. All right. Noni Madueke there, winning the home fans over on his way to a hat-trick, and Chelsea to a 6-2 victory. This game, Sunday at 2 o'clock, wasn't on TV. So to hear exactly what happened, let's speak to the Athletics' Liam Toomey. So I see Wolves went behind twice replied, finished the first half at 2-2. And then what happened?
Then Chelsea ran riot. And in particular, Noni Madueke ran riot. He'd spat at the den of the Wolves, and the Wolves fans let him know that they were aware of goings on Instagram within a minute of the match, which brought a smile from him and raised the temperature of the game. And I think that did inform the first half. But in the second half, Chelsea really took control, and Madueke rose to the occasion. He clearly used it as a bit of self-motivation, and he ended up with a hat-trick, which is something that happened the last time Chelsea won at Molineux with Tammy Abraham in 2019.
Right. I see from your piece, I think it is, that Madueke has now scored more Premier League goals in Wolverhampton than he has at Stamford Bridge.
I didn't actually know that, so
Okay.
maybe that's been put in by the editors in the intro,
Perhaps.
but it's a very good stat.
Another stat that's in there, courtesy of Opta, is the fact that actually Wolves had a bigger XG than Chelsea did. Other things we might draw from this game, apart from the fact that Chelsea had some fine finishing going on, was that alongside the hat-trick for Madueke was a hat-trick of assists for Cole Palmer, who contributed a magnificent goal of his own. There had been some doubts about how well he would fit in to Maresca's game plan this season. Generally speaking, how big a win was this for Maresca?
I think it was huge. This felt like the proper start to Maresca's tenure after the expected loss against Manchester City and the expected win against Servette. You know, this was the real start of Chelsea's Premier League campaign. They're very aware that it was a poor start that really doomed them under Pochettino last season in terms of top four. So they couldn't afford to lose more ground, having already tasted defeat against City. And they face real adversity here. You know, Wolves threw everything at them in the first half. Maybe lost a bit of their own discipline in the second and opened themselves up to Chelsea in transition. But I think you also have to credit Chelsea for being ruthless. And you mentioned Palmer there. He's such an efficient player. He always seems to make the right decision. That, above all else, is his superpower. And when the ball dropped for him at the end of the first half, a first half in which, after a bright first 10 minutes, I'd say Wolves had done most of the running and were really getting on top. When that flick from Nicholas Jackson fell to him, it felt like there was no player on the pitch that you would have been more confident would have found a first time finish, deftly lobbing Jose Sarr the way that he did. And his plan in the second half was just give the ball to Madueke in space, and it was a very, very effective game plan for Chelsea.
And is Cole Palmer playing more of a central role in the lineup than was previously forecast?
So in this game, he was. Against City, he was operating from the right flank, but here he was basically the right-sided number 8 in Maresca's system. So Maresca goes to this box midfield with an inverted fullback, completing the box, and Palmer was the top right corner of that, operating in the little half space where he's just receiving the ball on the half turn and usually giving it to Madueke 1v1 on the wing in an advantage situation for Chelsea. And he did it extremely well. The one question that you would have in terms of the balance of Chelsea's team, I think, is you mentioned the XG. Chelsea gave up a lot to Wolves in this game. It's pretty unsustainable to ask them to finish as well as they did while conceding as many chances as they did. And that midfield alignment, without Romeo Lavia, of course, without Conor Gallagher to do a lot of running that Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez either can't do or won't do, Chelsea's midfield was very creative but very brittle at times. It was very liable to being run through, and Wolves will not be the last team to exploit that if Maresca doesn't correct it.
Okay. But you're confident overall, for any Chelsea fans listening, that this is the start of something big?
We've had our share of false dawns on the Chelsea beat in the last few years, but it does feel like a win that can be the start of something good for Maresca.
Excellent. All right, then. Get the hell out of that shithole as fast as you can, Liam. And safe journey home.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, there you go. Liam Toomey will be on Straight Out of Cobham podcast with you, Matt Davis-Adams. You were also all over this game because you were commentating for Chelsea TV on it.
I surely was. Yeah, first of a double header for me. I've got
yeah?
to go Wolverhampton, Athletic HQ, Washington DC all today. So it's it's a busy one for me. Yes, Liam's pretty much hit the nail on the head with everything there. I thought that he mentions Caicedo. The first half of this game was really early season. Both teams were pretty atrocious in like very basic things of controlling the ball and passing it to one another and stuff. And it's one of those things that you kind of laugh at and August football. And then Chelsea totally got to grips with it in the second half, and Wolves just completely fell apart. And Caicedo was a really good example of that because he was dreadful in the first half, and then he was brilliant in the second half until he was injured and went off. But yeah, Madueke, obviously the standout, but Palmer is just amazing. As Liam says, his efficiency is really unusual for somebody of his tender years. We had a question to Straight Out of Cobham last week, and bless the person who posted it. They've already replied with the Homer Simpson backing into the hedge meme. Is there a concern that Cole Palmer doesn't suit this system and doesn't look like he has the ability to roam? That is no longer a concern, and it's also a big benefit to him that obviously he's worked with Enzo Maresca for a year with Man City's B team already, so it's not like he's getting to know a new coach for the second season. I also thought it was worth a mention for Nicholas Jackson, who seems to be, as Chelsea are for understandable reasons, a figure of derision. I don't quite get it with Jackson. He scored 17 goals last season, which is not bad for your first season. He's only just turned 23. And his hold-up play while he was on the pitch today was really good and enabled Palmer and Madueke to do what they were doing. So I think that he's worth a mention. And there's a lot of talk about how Chelsea don't have a striker. I think he's a pretty capable one.
Okay, he got the opening goal. The last goal of the 6, what a result that was, scored by João Felix, set up by Pedro Neto. I should just stress that on Thursday's Totally, I may have inadvertently described the price tag that Chelsea have paid for João Felix as 60 million. A lot of people piled in on that. Rightly so. Rightly so. 45, is that correct? 45 million?
Yeah, I mean, it's a state of mind, isn't it? Transfer fees. Depends who you ask on what day. I'm quite pleased as a Nottingham Forest supporter at this Wolves performance with us playing them next week, but I would imagine that Tim was rather concerned because, that second half, I mean, they had so many chances in the first half, and the second half, they didn't turn up at all. And if like Caicedo was the barometer of that for Chelsea, then Mateus Cunha was for Wolves, because Chelsea couldn't handle him, just like they couldn't last season in the first half, and then he didn't get a kick after half time.
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of hard to say from a Chelsea point of view if this is the start of something. I mean, one, because Wolves were so poor.
The end of something for Wolves?
Well, do you know, Gary O'Neill's only won one of his last 12 in charge.
Yeah.
And
5 points from the last 36 available.
Just got a new contract though, hasn't he?
just got a new contract. I mean, I have sympathy for him in that for the second summer in a row, Wolves have sold big and not invested all of that money. Again, you know, they've got 90 million for Kilman and Neto, and they're not reinvesting all that back in the team, you know, for sure. However, it is on O'Neill to change the system. So Wolves played it safer last season with 5 at the back, you know, recognised their deficiencies and sort of played as a counter-attacking team as on a whole. But now they've gone to 4 at the back, basically. It's effectively 4-2-4 today because they've got 4 attacking players on the pitch. And if you're going to do that, you need 2 really good centre-halves against most Premier League opposition. But Wolves have got Totti Gomez and Jose Mosquera, who sort of 23, 24, promising players but inexperienced. And then you've got a left-back in Ryan Aït-Nouri, who really likes to push on. Hence why Madueke had the space and the time to be fed by Cole Palmer and then finish 3 incredibly similar goals in a really short space of time. What was it? 12-minute hat-trick, all from the same position. Wolves going walkabout every time. And then I think after the 5th win in, Gary O'Neill changed it and went 5 at the back and tried to shut up shop. But it's obviously far too late by then. It's pretty symbolic.
Is this as much about Wolves getting it wrong then as Chelsea turning over a magnificent new?
I think so, because if you look at the fact that Maresca wasn't ruling out Madueke leaving the club 3 days ago, you can't say that he's at the forefront of something special. And here we go, because God knows what Chelsea are going to look like in 4 days' time when the window ends. And from Wolves' point of view, it's a big week for them, but they have not got much money to spend. But there's going to need to be a bit of a rethink on Gary.
Kilman's the massive loss, isn't he? Because he played every minute for Wolves in the Premier League last season.
Yeah, and you can see, he's already started doing pretty well for West Ham. He kept a clean sheet and he got an assist at the weekend. So to not replace him, and they tried to get Dara O'Shea from Burnley in the past couple of days, but weren't prepared to meet the 15 million asking price. So he's going to go to Ipswich instead, which doesn't look great from Wolves' point of view. If you get effectively outbid by Ipswich for a player you really need, a commanding centre half. They do have Craig Dawson to come in, but he's pretty old now, and you're going to have to sit pretty deep if you're playing Craig Dawson. So, some issues there.
But this could go one of 2 ways for Wolves. It's the second week of the season. How much can you read into it? But if you concede 6 goals, that could either sort of destroy the players' self-confidence and belief in what they're being asked to do. Or it could be, as you say, the fact that maybe that, Gary O'Neill's thinking, right, that system clearly isn't working for these players. He's going to bin it nice and early, has a chance to reset. You'd rather that happen in the second week in the season than maybe a month or so in, when it might be a little bit more difficult to do that. Well, there's still time to maybe, as you sort of allude to there, to get maybe 1 or 2 more signings in as well. There's scope for that changing. You would like to think from a Wolves point of view anyway.
Only time will tell which way it will go, Colin.
A day that started with a hey nonny no, finished with a hey nonny woe.
Very nice. Very nice, Matt. Chelsea, I just wanted to mention, were 2-0 winners against Servette out of Switzerland since our last show. Should have been 3-0 though, shouldn't it, Matt?
Oh, Mark Guiu, but that, bless him. Putting out an apology on
Did he
X,
put out an
formerly known
apology?
as Twitter. Yeah, poor lad. You don't need to do that. You're 18.
Well, he had 3 pops in it.
Yeah.
It was egregious.
It was egregious, yes.
Yeah.
But Servette should have scored in that game. At least 1 goal, probably
Should they?
2. But 2-0, I think Chelsea will get through. That was
not the best a man can get.
very good. That was notable for Noni Madueke scoring again and doing a celebration in which he said, "Sell me," with a curious look on his face.
Right.
So he's not short of confidence.
Chelsea's Conference League playoffs, because they sound like a lot of fun. The next one's coming up on Thursday, I guess.
Sure is.
All right.
Yeah, I'll be there for that.
Yeah? And you'll be doing a Straight Out of Cobham when with Liam and friends?
Straight Out of Cobham will be released. The next episode, sorry, I'm 42. The next episode will drop tomorrow at some point, despite the bank holiday. Chelsea doesn't take a day off, so neither do we.
No. Football. Bournemouth Newcastle was taking place simultaneously with Wolves Chelsea. And Colin, you were all over that. There was 2 goals that were given. Marcus Tavernier in the first half. Anthony Gordon equalising for the visitors in their brand new away kit, which nobody likes very much. And then right at the end, Dango Ouattara, I've pronounced that wrong, haven't I? Ouattara. Dango Ouattara thought he'd won it for the Cherries, and we all thought he had 2.
But VAR intervened and alleged that the Ouattara touch had been a handball in terms of where it had gone in off his arm. So it's a corner kick in. Ouattara jumps up with Dan Burn. He gets to the ball first and it goes in. And then you're looking at the slow motion replays and it does hit his arm. But then the question is it his arm or his shoulder? And where does that line end? And we've been over this before with football and not really knowing exactly where. I think the sort of consensus was that it was the end of his sort of shirt sleeve, just above his elbow. But the replay did seem to show that it hit his arm pretty high up, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was a really harsh decision.
Yeah, it was very, very harsh. And I think one of the points as well with this is that when Newcastle players didn't complain, there wasn't a sense that this was going to be ruled out. There was, this was a last-minute winner, jubilation in the ground, and then for that to intervene. I think Bournemouth felt at that moment in time very hard done by. And they had been the better side, certainly for the opening hour. They went 1-0 up, as you said, in the first half. And then Harvey Barnes came on, and that made a bit of a difference for Newcastle. They became a bit more dynamic, and they kept on Anthony Gordon as well, and it was Barnes and Gordon linked up for the equalising goal. And you sort of thought maybe Newcastle could have pushed on, but it didn't. It ended 1-1, and Joel Linton could easily have seen red, I think, in ahead of time.
And what
as
was
well.
that for?
So Newcastle had an attack. There was a set piece into the box, and Bournemouth's goalkeeper Neto had caught it, and then he was trying to release the ball quickly for another sort of last gasp counter attack, and Joel Linton sort of clotheslines him. I think the sort of wrestling expression is to sort of just come in and wipes him out. And I mean, it was very late. It was quite. I mean, I think it was quite dangerous as well. The referee gives him a yellow card, and again Bournemouth were up in arms that it wasn't.
That's just the manager, I think, got sent off over that.
Yeah, there was a member of the coaching staff certainly was sent off, and a game that had been kind of meandering a little bit was very contentious towards the end. I mean, Newcastle will take that, especially having won their first game with 10 men against Southampton. They seem to be getting points on the board early. But again, I think it's maybe just a case of this is very early on in the season. Both teams are sort of settling down a little bit. Both teams have quite a few players out injured for this as well. So it perhaps isn't the most surprising that this was a little bit scrappy.
Okay.
And a point probably fair enough despite the contentious decisions later on.
All right then.
That contention is odd, isn't it? Because he's supposed to have the lighter touch of VAR this season and go with the on-field decision, and then that kind of flies in the face of that. So you think if VAR's getting involved to disallow that, why is it not saying that Joe Linton should have been sent off?
I don't know, Matt.
But it was a factual handball.
Says the Premier League.
Says the official Premier League match centre on X, which we're going to be hearing from
Oh yeah.
a lot this season. Yeah, they tweeted, it's awarded on field. VAR overturned this decision as they deemed it to be a factual handball.
They deemed it to be a factual. Okay. Anyway, next up for Newcastle. Oh, it's a trip to Forest midweek because it's, Carabao Cup second round this midweek.
Yeah, annoying that. I'd rather not draw another Premier League team, but I shall be at Walsall v Huddersfield instead.
Okay, well, you'll miss out on potentially Sandro Tonali returning to the field as a Newcastle player because his 10-month ban for business comes to an end in time for Carabao Cup.
I'll have to make my peace with that.
Woo! Liverpool-Brentford also took place on Sunday. We all watched it. There's so much to talk about. I feel like Liverpool fans, you might understand if we breeze past this a little bit. You had 2 goals here. Luis Diaz on the counter early on, and then Mo Salah teed up by the aforementioned Colombian.
Yeah, there's not too much to say about this game, but Liverpool played very well in patches, certainly, and they look very fluid. The front three look very fluid, I thought, and yeah, again, you're a new coach coming in to replace a club legend and Jurgen Klopp's larger-than-life figure. So I think Arne Slot will be happy with the fixture list that Liverpool got, certainly for the opening 2 games, and to get 2 early wins to sort of get that out of the way. And one thing from these as well is that they managed back-to-back clean sheets, which they hadn't done since October last season. So in the league anyway. So
very nice, despite the fact that they did give up quite a few chances. I don't know what the XG was for Brentford, but the first half after they went behind, they did have what felt like a lot of opportunities to get their first goal at Anfield in the Premier League era. And I don't know whether any Brentford fans out there are wondering whether if Ivan Toney had been on the field rather than frozen out the squad because he's got an upcoming move to Saudi Arabia, the outcome might have been different. But it wasn't. Liverpool maintained their excellent start to the season, which they'll look to continue, of course, next Sunday when they face, who is it, Tim, they're facing next weekend?
It's the Red Devils, isn't it, I believe? Feels
That's
like
right, that's their nickname, yeah.
it sort of feels like calm v chaos, really. It's not to be underrated how sort of serenely Liverpool have started, I think. You remember Moisey post Fergie and Unai Emery post Wenger. This doesn't normally go well, so I don't think he hasn't changed a huge amount. And he's obviously trying to implement a new style, but it is interesting that their best moments come from sort of very brisk attacks and counter-attacks. But they've got that balance right between keeping possession and then raising the tempo in the right moments. I think you're right about the front three because they're sort of adaptable to both of those styles and are working really well together. They met in the third game a couple of seasons ago as well, didn't they? I seem to remember. And everyone was writing United off, and then United won at Old Trafford.
2-1. It was Eric Ten Hag's first season, and obviously the game that preceded that was United's 4-0 defeat at Brentford, which was probably their worst performance ever in the Premier League, quite possibly. But yeah, I mean, these games are. I mean, the games for United and Liverpool, like they can change so much of the mood around the club. And I don't think Liverpool or United are too high or too low at the minute, but I mean, if Arne Slot was to go to Old Trafford and pick up 3 points, I mean, all of a sudden you're looking at that and thinking, they're going to be on a roll in the first couple of months of the season. And the fact that this comes before the international break, where you have that little period of time, it can really set a narrative. You don't want to be going into the national break on a defeat and that sort of mull over for a couple of weeks. That's never a nice feeling. So, yeah, there's quite a lot riding on it, even despite the fact it's already in the season.
We'll talk about what Man United got up to this weekend very shortly. But next up, we'll check out the champions and their buddies Arsenal. Lovely stuff. Bosh. The champions, Man City, took on Ipswich Saturday afternoon. Quite the start to this one. Plucky Tractor Boys opening the scoring. 6 minutes and 31 seconds onto the clock, as Tom Harris on the Athletic wrote, as the ball trickled into the back of Ederson's net, 3,000 travelling fans experienced a feeling they might never forget. Yep, taking the lead away to the champions. Less than 9 minutes later, they were 3-1 down, of course, but they did experience that moment. So was their goal, kind of breaking fast on City's high line, was that significant as a chink in the City armour? Or was City's response the bigger message in this game?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was. I mean, we spoke last week that Ederson didn't play very well on the opening weekend at Stamford Bridge, and that was a shot that he should have saved. So that's something I think to keep an eye on, because the gap between he and Ortega seems to be getting less and less, I think. And obviously Ederson, it looks like, sort of wanted away. But I don't think there was anybody who thought that Manchester City wouldn't run out comfortable winners after going 1-0 behind. I think probably Ipswich will be relatively pleased with the final score, because there was a period where they were completely swamped in the game. And, the much-hyped Leif Davis, who's had a really tough introduction to the Premier League, going up against Salah and Haaland, gives away a penalty. And you fear for them at that point.
And rightly so.
Yeah.
Haaland converts a penalty, it's 1-1. And then a keeper you're familiar with, Muric.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I mean, I don't really get what kind of reputation he's living off, to be honest, without wishing to bury him, because he made some really bad mistakes for Burnley, didn't he, last season? He had a loan at Forest a few years ago, which they cut short after 4 games because he was so bad. Right. So for Ipswich to bring him in, seems curious to me, especially because they had a pretty reliable goalkeeper.
Who's gone to Burnley?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, just from the outside looking in, that seems quite strange. Because Muric, was a walking howler last season.
Well, here he dallies on the ball. Savinho puts pressure on him. The ball falls to De Bruyne, who makes it 2-1 City, and then Erling Haaland got his second after rounding the keeper, and then later on he got his hat-trick, which was a very nice goal indeed, his third goal.
Such a benefit for him not to have played in the Euros, isn't it? I know that's not a new point, but
okay.
And you think that City sometimes take a while to warm up into a season. As we said about Liverpool, their fixtures are pretty generous to start with, aren't they? Which is kind of ominous for everybody else. West Ham, Brentford, then they got Arsenal next. But yeah, I mean, up until sort of November, December time, it's difficult to see many games where they're going to drop any points, I think. And of course, they had Gundogan back on the bench for this game, which is one of the kind of weirdest transfer stories of the last 12 to 18 months.
Weird, although kind of makes
quite
a lot
Barcelona.
Of sense.
Yeah.
Quite City as well.
He spent a year at Barcelona pretty much saying it's not professional enough here. I don't know why players aren't sadder after defeats. And and then this comes back to City and slots right back into a winning team. And this is the first ever Premier League game, by the way, all on record, which began 18 years ago in 2006. That the first 4 shots all went in. And I know it's a bit, you can read a bit much into it, one of them's a penalty and everything else. But I mean, it is a great moment for Ipswich fans. They've gone 1-0 up, and I think those goals when the ball rolls very slowly over the line, I think they're particularly satisfying because you can see it coming and you're willing it in.
Especially it's not at your end of the ground, so you kind of like, has this really happened? It takes a couple of extra seconds for it to reach the away end that it's actually gone in, and the noise is slightly different. And
didn't get to savour it for very long though. you want at least to get a few songs out. We're winning at the Champions, or that would be a terrible song, but something along those lines. I thought Haaland's second goal was better actually.
Did you?
Well, the ball from De Bruyne just clipped over the top from halfway, and he breaks perfectly, and then sort of heads it heads it past the keeper, but still in control of the ball almost. So it's his 23rd hat trick, which kind of made me think: is he going to get more hat tricks than some strikers ever score goals? Because Welbeck got his 100th this weekend.
Yeah.
And if Haaland, he can get up towards sort of 60, 70 hat tricks.
Here's a relevant stat to that from someone called King Kun. Erling Haaland has scored more hat tricks in his career than Gabriel Jesus has scored goals for Arsenal. Let that sink in, says King Kun.
I mean, Gabriel Jesus is always injured, isn't he? So that colours that a little bit, perhaps.
But it's quite dramatic.
Yeah.
Quite dramatic. There you go. City's consecutive league wins by at least 2 goals tracker now stands at 11 matches. And who have they got next week, did you say?
West Ham, then home game against Brentford, and then the big one against Arsenal at the end of next month. In fact, they got Arsenal, then Newcastle away, so maybe there's a little bit of jeopardy there, but it is kind of mind-numbingly predictable.
Well, Arsenal's start to the season hasn't been all that easy. They face Wolves, which, but this weekend, taking on the team that they'd failed to score against in 2 meetings last season, Aston Villa, Saturday evening, and running out 2-0 winners. Once they got Trossard onto the field, that is, who replaced the ineffective Gabriele Martinelli. What did I call it? Yeah, Martinelli. And then it was Thomas Partey who got the second. Now, the move that Trossard was involved in, although if you're going to be finicky, Emi Martinez might have done a bit better with that shot.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Arsenal fans Schadenfreude with Martinez's mistake. They were chanting his name with a lot of glee, and then Villa fans responded with Martinez is one more than you, which historically isn't accurate, but I suppose in the past couple of seasons,
in the past 5 years or so, yeah.
I mean, uncharacteristic mistake, but Arsenal were clinical. They got a little bit of good fortune, I think, in this game. Aston Villa away is one of the more difficult assignments you're going to get in the season, and there was that huge chance that Ollie Watkins had when the initial shot had been tipped onto the post, I think, by David Raya, and he was sort of struggling to get up, and Watkins had an almost open goal of a header, but he headed it straight at Raya, who managed to get to his feet.
It's the second week in a row that Raya's come up with something really spectacular.
That was better than the
this one,
last one, I think.
Yeah.
Last week.
Okay. And he was named in the Premier League's PFA Team of the Season for last season this week, if you follow me there. Alrighty, a statement win this, and if so, what is the statement?
I don't think so. I think this result said more about Villa's deficiencies compared to last season than.
Good time to play Villa, wasn't it? They're bedding in a lot of
Watkins should have had him 2-0 up, not 1-0 up. We had one in the first half as well, which definitely. I feel like 6 months ago, Watkins definitely takes one of those chances. They had the young right back Nedeljkovic on for Matty Cash. Both goals come from that side of the pitch. I mean, he's like 20 years old. And then the Martinez mistake. None of these things sort of happened last season. Yeah, it's a really good win for Arsenal, obviously. But I don't think, because they've gone to Villa and won 2-0, now, they're more likely to be champions this season because they weren't doing this last year. I think, personally, it's more a little bit concerned for Villa.
They're more likely to be champions than if they hadn't.
They are.
Won there.
They were great at the start of last season as well, weren't they? Were they 10 unbeaten? Start of last season didn't make any difference. Their run is fascinating now, isn't it? If we said City's is a bit sort of, you expect them to win them all. Brighton home, then Spurs away, City away for Arsenal. Huge games.
And they've won 18 of their 20 Premier League matches this calendar year, which is remarkable.
The joint highest number. 18 wins out of first 20 league games in a calendar year. Just repeat exactly what you said for emphasis. Joint highest with 2 teams in English football top flight history.
Pep Guardiola's Man City and Bob Paisley's Liverpool.
Correct,
it says in the doc that we all have access to, so I won't take too much credit for that.
Taking that out. Bring that curtain back across. And Bob Paisley's Liverpool, correct, Matt. Absolutely.
One thing which was unusual about this game was when Watkins missed his either first or second chance, the camera panned to the watching Lee Carsley in the stands, who won't be impressed with that as he prepares his next England squad.
Interim England manager.
The interim England manager.
How did he get that interim job?
Same way Gareth Southgate did.
Yeah.
Be the under-21 manager. Be prepared to do it on an interim basis. Don't cost very much.
There you go.
See if we can get Pep Guardiola at the end of the season, I think is probably the thinking. But yeah, I mean, he will have been watching Ollie Watkins. He might well have been watching Morgan Rogers as well in this game because he was absolutely fantastic.
Good.
Yes.
Do you remember that Rio Ferdinand video from the Real Madrid game when
Ballon d'Or?
Yeah, Ballon d'Or. That's what I was thinking every time he had the ball. No, it was unbelievable. He's got such a sort of unusual sort of running style. He's quite strong as well. It sort of reminded me of Harry Kane a little bit, how he can always just seem to be able to hold off the player while keeping the ball so close to his feet. But he was just so direct. I mean, Declan Rice had a horrible game. He was sort of dancing on ice style, slipping around the middle of the pitch as Rodgers was sort of weaving inside and out. I've not seen a huge amount of him, to be honest, but he looks Premier League ready.
Could be the season of the Championship breakout star in the Premier League. You got him. Obviously came in January from Middlesbrough, Smodics. Jack Clark's just joined Ipswich. He's very good. Ruter, Odebear, he debuted for Spurs this weekend. Archie Gray too. Seems to be clubs shopping there a bit more than maybe in seasons past.
Arsenal busy doing their shopping in La Liga. Still trying to tie down that move for Real Sociedad's Mikel Merino. Where are we at with that, Colin? Because you've been all over transfer talk of late in your editorial capacities.
It's very, very close. I think there's an agreement between the clubs, and the player was due to be undergoing a medical this weekend in London. So, I mean, the assumption is that is close. And I think what has held up a couple of Arsenal's deals this summer is trying to get players to move on. And essentially the selling clubs. And Eddie Nketiah is one that's kind of rumbled on. And, you know, we're hearing all these about clubs selling their academy graduates in terms of their PSR calculations and everything else. So there was the potential that has kind of held things up. And Nketiah was due to be going to Forest, and now that appears to be off. He might be going to Crystal Palace instead. So yeah, I mean, there's still 5 days left in the window until Friday as we record. So we're really into the home straight now, and
you're really looking forward to the deadline, don't you?
I'm really looking forward to it finishing. It will, I think it's going to be a busy week. It's fair to say. Still a lot of clubs looking to do business, and quite a few big transfers potentially. So,
okay,
yeah, want to keep an eye on.
Very shortly, we'll talk Brighton Man United from way back Saturday lunchtime and other treats too. Totally Football Show European edition is out later on Monday. Basically, everyone's on holiday, but they're going to be phoning it in to some mug who's going to be sat on his own in the studio on a bank holiday. Other talking points in the show will include the Bundesliga starting and the Paulo Dybala news for Roma and all sorts of other treats from around the continent and the latest transfer talk as well. Do join us for that. Paul, Seb, James, Jules and myself. If you're also hungry for a fast-paced, concise, pithy roundup of a key football story or two, then lend your ears to the Daily Football Briefing podcast, again from The Athletic. That's with Ian McIntosh at the helm, reviewing all the day's football news in the space of 10 minutes. Breathless stuff. Don't know how many minutes we're going to take over Brighton Man United, but not enough, I would say. Not enough. A 95th minute winner for the Seagulls at home to the Red Devils. There was all sorts of action in this game, but that finale, João Pedro and a number of other Brighton players ludicrously unmarked by Man United's rear guard. But Colin, I know you were tweeting about this remarkable turnaround in what used to be such a strength for Man United, the late goals, that wonderful Steve McLaren quote, "We don't lose games, we just run out of time," to now when they're potentially shipping them late on.
Yeah, there's a remarkable stat for just Premier League games alone that this was the sixth Premier League game that United have lost in the 90th minute since the start of the 22-23 season, more than any other club in the league. And before then, in the first 30 leagues, they'd only lost games in that manner twice.
So in the first 30 years of the Premier League, 2 of them, and since Ten Hag pitched up, 6.
Yeah, and that doesn't include a lot of other matches, such as the
Champions League.
Well, the Champions League, of course, but the Brentford match last season when they went 1-0 up in the 96th minute and didn't win. Even the fact that a lot of those games included 2 late goals. Obviously, they were 3-2 up at Chelsea quite late on last season, lost that 4-3.
Coventry game in the Cup.
Yep, the Coventry game in the Cup as well was the last minute equaliser. Arsenal scored twice against them in the last minute pretty much this time last year when it was 1-1.
What does it mean? Is it What would you put that down to?
Well, when we talk about United last season, we talked about the volume of shots they conceded, and sort of that's inevitable that you give up that many chances and players tire later on. That happens, but when you look at them this season, it's not the same tactical setup. They do definitely have more control over games. They're better in possession. They're better out of possession. But this game against Brighton, they did drop off quite a lot in the last sort of 5 minutes or so, and that had come after they got themselves back into the game through Ahmed's equaliser, and then pretty unfortunate margin to be chalked offside for the Xerxes knee on the line of Garnacho's tap in.
A lot of people said that, but the knee was offside.
Yeah, it was, but it was one of those whereby it didn't impact the actual goal itself. So I mean, yeah,
it would have gone in without that knee.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was a lovely move, and that again, they seem to. I think the problem with Ten Hag's United is that whenever they do have a setback in a match like that, like something marginal goes against them, they tend to lose their heads a little bit. And talked about the Arsenal game last season, and Ten Hag always referenced that later in the campaign when Garnacho had seemingly put them 2-1 up with 2 minutes left, and it was marginally offside, and then they concede twice later on. And I guess that's the kind of fear from a United point of view, that there's going to be a similar theme this season. There certainly wasn't the Community Shield, even when they were 1-0 up against City until the last minute. But I mean, I think there's a lot of signs from this team that there is improvement. I think the recruitment this summer has actually been pretty positive, I think, for the first time in quite a while. But I mean, there's still a long way to go before Man United are back to where Man United fans think they should be. But I think I don't think there's anything overly concerning from this performance alone. If you take it on an individual basis, I mean, we always say this, but Brighton are genuinely a very good team.
Yeah,
I think they've signed a lot of players for quite a bit of money as well this summer. They've got quite a lot of squad depth, more signings to come as well, and obviously with a new head coach who is quite depressingly the first ever Premier League head coach who's younger than me.
That's the official stat, isn't it?
That's the real quiz. Yeah, and they've got a lot going for them, and also they just don't have the same distractions as they did last season. So I think
that's true. Good. Brighton, who every time shed their skin and come back even stronger, it seems.
Like Danny Welbeck, I'm really heartened by his kind of career revival. I had a look because this was his 100th goal. You kind of forget that he played for Arsenal. That seems like a bit of an anomaly, doesn't it? But he has now played more games for Brighton than he did for Arsenal. But he left Arsenal to go to Watford, and he played hardly 20 games he played, and you think, that his career's just petered out because he had lots of injuries, didn't he? And he always struggled to get over them. And then he goes to Brighton, and you think, maybe he gets the odd run out in the Carabao Cup or whatever, but he's turned into a really useful player for them, and he's one of those people who it seems quite difficult to not like, and he's wrung the most out of his career. Got 42 England caps as well. Danny Welbeck, yeah. Last of them in 2018, but yeah, seems like a good bloke. I'm pleased to see him starting the season well.
Excellent. All right, United not starting the season quite so well, and they've got Liverpool next Sunday. Ooh, Jack Shoebrook, Duncan Millin, and its success all got in touch because last Sunday, Matt, you were part of or indeed a key proponent, I think, of a conversation about who was the greatest Premier League goal scorer.
I'm getting the blame for this, am I?
Well, you were there, and Jack Shoebrook, Duncan Millin, and its success. Will feel that Andy Cole should have had a mention in that.
Yeah, and I think they're probably right.
Are they?
Yeah, if I'd had more time to think about it, I surely would have brought up
Andy Cole, who
is fourth on the all-time list of Premier League goal scorers.
With no penalties as well.
Yeah.
Ooh.
More than Sergio Aguero, he scored in the Premier League.
Yeah, who did get a mention last week. I thought perhaps.
And got a few penalties as well, didn't he?
So why does Andy Cole not get the... Is it a recency bias?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Alan Shearer's like the man, isn't he? I know that was quite a while ago, but the others on the list are Kane. And he's always on telly. The others in the top five are Kane, Rooney, Cole and Aguero. So the rest are all very recently.
And Cole sort of disappeared from view, didn't he?
Yeah.
You see him on the odd bit. But he was never one to, put on the charm offensive, was he?
And he's sort of his career wound down in a quite unsatisfactory way, didn't it? Where he went through a lot of clubs in the last few seasons.
Yeah, it was like Blackburn, Fulham.
Played for Forest for a bit, Sunderland.
Nobody wanted to see that.
Everybody, yeah, I didn't. I was there at Loftus Road. Terrible day. But yeah, he certainly deserves his flowers, especially as he got no penalties in that list. But then, you could say the same for Jermaine Defoe. We didn't mention him either, and he's in the top 10.
Good Lord. Good Lord. That's a conversation that no doubt is going to run and run. We're going to move on to, after a break, is it, Producer Charlie? After a break, we're going to move on to very, very shortly what Spurs got up to this weekend. Spurs taking on Everton Saturday at 3 o'clock. You won't have seen this unless you're outside the UK or fundamentally unethical, or you might have been at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But anyway, in the 14th minute, an Ibasuma boomer. Wow, what a goal. And what a way to score your first goal for Tottenham Hotspur in your 56th appearance. He was a late call-up.
Nothing matter. Yeah, a good goal.
Oh, yeah.
Nonetheless.
Yeah, because he's been, he posted a video of himself not calling Spurs shit, but taking laughing gas. Do young people do that?
I suppose so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Postecoglou said he sort of reacted like a child, like just started doing everything right. For the next few
giggling?
days. Yeah. Yeah, as in, he'd realised he'd been told off and needed to impress the manager again. And lo and behold, he scores his first goal in 2 seasons.
Love it when you kiss it off the crossbar. On the
it's
so
gorgeous
aesthetically
and
pleasing.
Beautifully set up by Kulusevski. It's a great assist. Just sort of, he's going down a cul-de-sac in the box and then just keeps it past 2 players and tees them up. But yeah, in terms of that, I mean, they needed this. They missed this last season. Spurs, of the 6 midfielders they used mostly, which would be Basuma, Sarr, Maddison, Bentancur, Højbjerg, and Skip. Between the 6 of them, they only scored 8 goals, which for such an attacking team, you need more from your midfielders. So Maddison also looks very good.
Okay.
After a horrendous end to last season, he's sort of come back refreshed. Whatever he's done in the summer after being snubbed by Gareth Southgate, seems to have got himself correct. And Spurs look pretty good. Yeah.
Spurs fans really happy to see Kulusevski on the field, and I suspect really happy with the way that Wilson Odegaard slotted into that team.
Yeah, to be selected ahead of Timo Werner as well. And he made a few mistakes, which would have been perhaps punished by greater teams than Everton, of which there are many. But yeah, him and Kulusevski and Son, I mean, Son's ridiculous how he's still playing in his weaker position as a 9, and yet still comes up with 2 goals. If they can get Solanke in that team and linking well with those around him in the way that Kane used to do, then they'll be top 4 contenders, I think.
Okay. Son's second goal set up by a wonderful, magnificent run from Mickey van der Ven. Was that your moment of the week? Seeing him surge. It's so nice when a player surges all the way upfield and then it actually comes to something.
Yeah, I think there's something very satisfactory about seeing a defender just go for it, right, and just sort of lose his kind of positional misdemeanors and just go for it, and then to provide, as you say, to provide the end product as well, and not to get cold feet. But I think Tim's mentioned it there, but Spurs do look very fluid in attack, and when you think that this was without Solanke, they're obviously going to need to accommodate in that team at some point with the money they spend on him, and Timo Werner's not an automatic starter anymore, and you sort of feel like there's options there, and the way Ange Postecoglou plays, they could be a threat whenever they get going, and whenever those players have a bit of confidence, and Maddison's orchestrating it a little bit and as well. But I think they'll be wary of how much they did drop off in the second half of last season.
The injuries, isn't it? I mean, we said exactly these things a year ago, just with different players. When they 26 points from the first 30, their best ever start to a Premier League season, and still ended up finishing 5th. So it's going to be keeping everyone like Van der Ven fit.
This season we're very much not at home to Mr. and Mrs. knee-jerk reaction. So perhaps we should throw some perspective onto this fine 4-0 win by quoting The Athletic, who say Spurs won't have many easier matches than this for a long time, suggesting that Everton are, well, a bit of a pushover. They are certainly off to their worst ever start, if you can say that after only 2 games. Everton talking about bringing back Dele Alli. And, I read that on The Athletic.
New favourite to be the first Premier League manager.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he? When even Jordan Pickford's letting him down like that?
But this is just what Everton did last season, wasn't it? They didn't score in any of their first 3 games, took 1 point from the first 5. That was against Sheffield United. turned it around then.
Mm.
Don't think there's anybody.
Will
who'd
there be
better
3
placed.
worse teams?
Mm.
Quite possibly. Just a note on, it talks about the wonderful assist for the second of Son Heung-min's goals. The assist for the first, of course, came from Jordan Pickford, who was really miscontrolled the ball, but still had a significant head start on the on-rushing Son Heung-min, but he's really slow at running.
Yeah, it was, I mean, obviously it's a dreadful mistake, but you look at Son's movement as well, how quick he was to close him down. It almost was as if he thought there's going to be a chance here.
Ange said afterwards that they had specifically put Son centrally to press Pickford, and bingo, that worked well. Very nice, very nice. Now, still to be mentioned in today's show from the Premier League weekend, we got your West Ham win away at Palace, Fulham beating Leicester 2-1, and also a little team called Nottingham Forest. Perhaps you've heard of them. Winning away at St Mary's. Go on then, Matt.
Yeah, 3 away wins in a row. Don't worry that they were against Sheffield United, Burnley and Southampton. They all count.
They do.
That's the main thing. Forest, I mean, Southampton had all of the ball, which is what they're going to do, but Forest had 23 shots in this match. And I think that
3 shots.
we've got a really good front line. I think Hudson-Odoi is back to the Hudson-Odoi that it was hoped that he would be before his devastating injury.
If you're playing Southampton and you have 23 shots but you only get 1 goal, is that a really good front line?
Yeah, because you've created that amount of chances. I mean,
Okay.
maybe you should be more clinical in putting them away. But I mean, more generally, I think if you offered a lot of teams around the mid to lower Premier League table, Hudson-Odoi on one side, Elanga on the other, Gibbs-White in between them, they would take that.
They'd
Now, if
bite
they can
your
get
hand off.
a striker that might be Santiago Jimenez now to give some backup to the perma-injured Awani and the not getting any younger Chris Wood, then that would be even better. But the other big plus from this game, from a Forest perspective, was Nikola Milankovic, who was the man of the match in many people's eyes. And yeah, we know all about Forest's set-piece vulnerability. Last season, he came in for his Premier League debut and was pretty much flawless. So yeah, there's a lot to be positive about for Forest this season.
23 shots for Forest. Southampton had 1. Match of the day, who only found time at the end of their show for this game, I thought a little bit cruelly, put up a stat saying that they take 128 passes before they manage a single shot, which does not sound like a recipe for success. One of our, Lynn, what do I call you? Video producer? Yeah, our video producer, if you're enjoying his work right now, if you're watching on YouTube, Liam was at this game, and he said that the Southampton fans were rotten. Russell Martin, the Southampton manager, did kind of touch on this after the game, where he said about the atmosphere. There was also a Southgatean post-game line about strange atmosphere and that, but essentially that kind of hangover from the relegation is still very much the dominant emotion. The joy of promotion seems to have just been replaced almost immediately with dark shades and memories of the trip down 2 seasons ago.
Well, talking the atmosphere, they've moved the away end. I don't know if that's linked, if they're trying to boost the atmosphere by having Southampton fans behind both goals. But I find it quite disconcerting. You know,
That's really
trying to find
disconcerting.
where the Forest fans were celebrating. But yeah, they're on the side of the pitch now.
You can't do that, can you?
Well, it's a horrible place to have an away end. But there are quite a few in the Premier League that have an
Do
away
they?
side now. Yeah, you've got Palace,
Wolves. Wolves is the lower tier opposite the hard camera, right?
Wolves,
It's behind the goal.
Everton, Villa, Ipswich. It's horrible. As an away fan, it's a much.
I'd say in Italy, because
cheaper
that's par for the
experience.
course, usually stuck in a corner and high up or below something where things might rain down on you, in the case of Naples. But I thought in the Premier League it was kind of pretty much a staple that you got an end and the other's got the other.
No, I guess, almost half are on the side.
How wrong it was.
But
How wrong it
it
is.
clearly hasn't improved the Southampton atmosphere.
Alrighty. 2 other games that we haven't mentioned are Fulham beating Leicester 2-1. Both goals from Arsenal Academy graduates, is that correct? Smith Rowe and Alex Iwobi. Emil Smith Rowe, to give him his full name. And Fulham also getting a lot out of Andres Pereira. And they could be getting a lot more from some other players who'll be coming in soon, like Joachim Andersen and Sander Berg. Good news for Fulham then? Anybody want to throw in anything on that before we get on to West Ham Palace?
Well, I know Duncan's pre-season prediction may have been slightly outlandish, but I think Marco Silva is such an underrated head coach.
Right.
Anytime I watch Fulham play, it's like a 6-7 out of 10 performance every single time, and they just look very well coached. In the sense that they keep losing their best players. They lost Mitrovic not that long ago. They didn't really replace him with an out-and-out goal scorer. It doesn't really matter. They've now lost Joao Paulinho this summer. Against United, they looked fairly solid at Old Trafford, and again against Leicester. I mean, that's a decent enough win, I think. And they recruit quite smartly, because they're recruiting players like Emile Smith-Rowe or Alex Iwobi, who almost have fallen off a little bit from where their career trajectory was. And this is Smith-Rowe's first goal since April 2022. Obviously, he's had a lot of injury concerns, but I think the Fulham environment, and I think it's helped by their, I guess, modest expectations, isn't it? There's not a huge focus on Fulham. There never really is, and that maybe helps a lot of these players.
Got them top 5, so
well, that could be the adversity that they might have this year. You mentioned Andres Pereira as well. I mean, he is someone who you always thought, he's a top level player probably, but he's just become so important in that team in terms of chance creation. He's really good at taking set pieces, and the players they've got who are attacking set pieces are a threat. They're quite a tall team. And yeah, they just have a strong identity, and they just go under the radar as always just being quietly quite good.
Mutually beneficial for Fulham and Marco Silva, isn't it? Because he needed to restore his reputation a little bit after, ditching Watford for Everton and not really working out at Everton, before that being at Olympiacos for a cup of coffee. So the fact that he's into what is 4th season at Fulham now maybe shows.
Is it 4 seasons at Fulham?
Yeah, and that's attractive, isn't it, to potential suitors, that he's not going to ditch you at the sign of a better opportunity.
Well, I know you like a prediction yourself, Matt, but to give Duncan's forecast its full context, he said that Fulham would get into top 5, I think kind of late December-ish time, but that would lead to Marco Silva getting poached by one of the big clubs that was looking to change up on the sidelines, and that Fulham would then fall away. We shall see. Unless Colin,
there was one particular big club who were interested in Marco Silva this summer. The managerial vacancy didn't become available, and we all know that United held talks with different managers. He was someone who was seen as a potential candidate, and it didn't obviously go as far as it might have done. But yeah, I mean, it's not impossible that Marco Silva could be in demand quite quickly. I mean, there's a lot of clubs who've got a lot more spending potential than Fulham do, and a lot more maybe expectations as well. Right. So yeah, it's possible.
And you reckon Everton could be the first one with an opportunity? Do you think you fancy a move to Everton?
I do not.
West Ham 2-0 winners at Crystal Palace. What a dramatic game! What a dramatic finish to this match, with late goals from Thomas Soucek and Jared Bowen, who then combined to save that Paul Ball boy, who at the second... No, it was the first goal, wasn't it? It was the first goal, I think, when the away fans spilled out onto the past the advertising hoarding, collapsing it on top of a hapless ball boy.
It's a genuinely heroic act. Like, he's right in the middle of celebrating and it just immediately stops, as most of the players did. Yeah. And you can see
he lifts,
and there's like 20 blokes pressing
really
down
impressive.
in the opposite direction. Yeah. Pretty burly guys.
He lifts the kind of the screen, and Jared Bowen, I think, ushers the...
And then gave him a shirt, I think, or a ball or something afterwards. But something similar has happened in the South Wales derby today. One of the Cardiff players had the Cardiff score an equaliser. Everybody piles forward. The advertising board comes down, lands on one of the Cardiff players' legs, and he limps away from the scene. So maybe it's something that we're going to have to watch out for.
Need to look at those advertising hoardings.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, literally.
How else are you going to know which crypto platform to trade on if you don't?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, that's dramatic. What else do you want to take from this? Julian Lopetegui's first win as West Ham boss, and indeed a second straight defeat for Oliver Glasner in charge of Palace.
Big week for Palace, isn't it? They need to get some players in and not lose anymore, otherwise they might be in for a difficult season. I know Glasner did brilliantly with them at the end of last season, but he was kind of at pains to point out that was not how they were for the majority of the season, and losing Elise and Anderson feels big. If you lose one of Gurhi or Eza this week too, then I think that is an incredibly negative start to the season for them. And Eddie Nketiah is probably not going to fill that hole, is he?
Although Tampa Palace Sorry, I was just thinking how to phrase this. Yeah, although Tampa Palace, perhaps the doyen of Florida-based Crystal Palace fans, tweeted about this. If you look into his career, you'll realise Glasner uses the first month of the season to experiment/tweak things and get his players up to his ridiculous physical standards. This isn't anything new. Let's try and fill this space with more positivity than the constant negatives, says Tampa Palace. So that's an interesting take, isn't it?
Might get Carney Chukwuemeka as well. Seems to be rumours of that this week, either on loan or on a perm from Chelsea, which would seem to fit an Elise-shaped hole if he can stay fit, which is a big if with him.
Sorry, I was distracted by some more positivity with an American kind of flavour to it. And that is that one signing that Palace have made is Phoenix, the American bald eagle. So, that's an actual eagle. Tim, you're looking confused.
Yes.
He will be circling and then landing ahead of matches, I'm guessing, in the near future at Selhurst Park.
Weird,
Well,
that, innit?
That is, yeah. So what they've reinstalled it? They reinstalled the eagle because they had it for a while. haven't
They have one.
Kayla passed away.
Oh, okay.
Aye.
Took a while to source a new eagle.
It's a pressurised environment for an eagle to fly around a football stadium in such a disciplined fashion. I mean, there's a lot of noises. I mean, it's easily distracted.
Benfica and Lazio, the other proponents of the pre-game Eagle circuit. I'm sure it'll be a thrill for Palace fans. I don't want to sound glib, but I know I do. But I think it's tremendous news. We'll see what the next 5 days holds for them in more kind of bipedal signings.
I think we should mention referee Rob Jones.
Oh yeah,
For the coolest interception of a football from a referee that you'll ever see.
What did he do?
Without doubt. So Lucas Paquetá decides to run away with the ball as Palace are trying to take a free kick. Basically, Palace indirect free kick. Paquetá, who has had some sort of questionable bookings in the past couple of years, we should say, he thinks that the ball's been touched and runs out from the wall to start running away with the ball with like a counter attack. And Rob Jones just sticks out the instep of his right foot and just takes the ball off his toes.
No way.
So nonchalantly. It's an incredible moment.
Like a Zaire 1974.
Yeah, he's
World
basically
Cup moment.
charged from the wall to run away with the ball. He didn't whack it clear, but he's trying to launch his own counters out, and the ref's like, no. But he doesn't say no, he just takes the ball off Paquetá's foot.
Damn. Magnificent. Very good. Well, that brings us to the end of our roundup of match day 2 of this Premier League season. Many, many thanks. Matt, you got to literally head off to Chelsea women against
Arsenal. Yeah, big game. We saw Sonia Bonpastor win her first as Emma Hayes' replacement in pre-season
this
on
game
Monday
taking
night.
place in Washington?
It is in Washington, D.C. at
Washington,
Audi
DC.
Field. Yeah, Arsenal warming up for their Champions League qualifier. So, yeah, should be good.
All right. Well, listen, enjoy that, Tim. No idea what you're heading off to do. Maybe
neither.
you'll feature it in your brand new weekly column, which we never mentioned.
Rosed's out on Friday.
Rose Ed, even though for this week's edition you watched every second of the videos on.
Oh, that was a separate. Do you know Cristiano Ronaldo?
Yeah,
his
that's
new
in there.
YouTube channel. That's a separate
Oh, that
piece
was a
because there was
separate
too much
article.
to talk about, James. So I did
You did it as a
chatting with
standalone.
my editor.
I read that.
And they were like, "Yeah, you should do another piece just on Ronaldo to give it its full attention."
Well, and I read it, and you'll notice that we didn't mention it once into this. no slight on you. It's
I
just,
mean,
he's not giving you anything to work with.
Basically, Ronaldo's launched his own YouTube channel,
Yeah.
which in 5 days has picked up 44 million subscribers.
To put that
as
in
he calls them.
perspective, how long we've been running our YouTube channel, and we're currently on. No, let's not put that in perspective.
But it's not a reflection on content because there is no content on Cristiano Ronaldo's
On
YouTube
Cristiano
channel.
Ronaldo's,
So
okay,
I've tried to explain. So I've tried to explain that in an article which people can read all about.
There you go. Nothing to see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But in 1,000 words.
Yeah. Magnificent. Is that one of Colin's? I know what I'm laughing. Anyway, it's going to be a busy week. Best of luck, Colin.
Yeah.
That transfer deadline and beyond. Tim, thank you for being in. Many thanks to Liam and producer Charlie. And you, listener stroke YouTube viewer, we'll be back Monday with the Euro Show, Thursday with a look ahead to match day 3. Do join us for that. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye.